Thank you all for coming. Good evening. I'm Salvatore Cumella. I'm the Executive Director here at the Matheson Museum. Before we begin, I'd like to take just a moment to acknowledge our generous sponsors whose support makes our programming possible. Tonight's program is sponsored by Visit Gainesville, Alachua County, Florida Humanities, the City of Gainesville, Department of State Division of Arts and Culture, the Florida Council on Arts and Culture, and tonight our special guests are the League of Women Voters. As a reminder, the Matheson Museum is a nonprofit institution and relies on the support of our community through memberships, donations, and volunteer efforts. So if you're not already a member, we'd love to welcome you into the museum family. You can find out more information about how to support us on our website, mathesonmuseum.org, or by speaking to any of our staff. I'd also like to take this opportunity to share some of our upcoming programs with you. This Saturday, we have an exciting program. February 8th at 2 p.m., we're kicking off our 2025 season of Second Saturdays in Sweetwater with a performance by Sandy Back Porch here on the front steps of the Matheson House in Sweetwater Park. Admission is free, and feel free to bring blankets or folding chairs. Should be a good time. Tonight's program is special in that it is the final program in our current Voices and Votes Alachua County exhibit, which closes on February 22nd. We're very excited to announce the opening of our new exhibit, The Alachua Phenomenon, 2 Centuries in Florida's Eden, opens on March 12th, 2025, so we invite you all out to come see that. Now I'm delighted to share a little bit with you about tonight's program, Voting and Elections in Alachua County, a discussion with Supervisor of Elections, Kim A. Barton. As Alachua County Supervisor of Elections, Supervisor Barton is in charge of administering county, state, and federal elections in Alachua County, serves on the canvassing board during elections, oversees the maintenance of voter rolls, designates early voting locations and polling places, makes election worker assignments, among her many other responsibilities. This evening, Supervisor Barton will share some of her experiences with us and answer some questions from the audience. Tonight's event will be hosted and moderated by Matheson Museum's own first Vice President and Alachua County's inaugural Poet Laureate, Mr. E. Stanley Richardson. Please join me in welcoming Supervisor Barton and Stanley Richardson.
Thank you, Sal, for that introduction. And welcome all of you here to the Matheson History Museum of Alachua County, and welcome to those who are joining us remotely via Zoom. We are delighted to have Kim Barton, Madam Supervisor of Elections for Alachua County, with us this evening. So thank you so much for joining us. Would you like to say some words?
Always ready for words. I'm so delighted to be here, and I'm extremely delighted to see an election worker out in the audience. But yes, I'm excited about this exhibit. I mean, if someone has not come to see this exhibit, you have truly missed a treat. I mean, the voices, I'm telling you, it really highlights Alachua County. The exhibit, that was the traveling exhibit that's not here anymore. If you missed that, it was so educational, and it really just gives this, even just on the wall, it gives such a history of voting in Alachua County. And I'm just happy just to be part of that history here in Alachua County. My office was able to lend some items to the Matheson Museum in the display cabinet. We had some ballots from previous historical elections. We had, we still do have out here the punch card, and you know, elections have evolved so much, so very much. There's been so many changes in elections. When you look back at, you know, just the equipment, just the process of how we vote, we have made so many changes that was so beneficial for our voters, efficiency, and so I think we have done some great things here in Alachua County. So I do have a couple of my staff members here as well. And I can truly tell you, the Vote Alachua team, they're do or die, sink or swim. They're in it for the long haul. Our election workers, we could not put on an election without them. They are committed. And so we just come off the 2024 election, which was a historic turnout as well. I think it was 86% turnout, and was a very, very high turnout elections. We saw early voting soar as well, and so we're looking to how we can improve on our processes for the 2026 elections. We are already hearing, meeting my staff. We never sit down on our laurels. We always are looking for ways that we can always, looking at the statutes, making sure we're following the statutes. And so once again, I'm just excited to be here.
Thank you. We have a few questions that we're gonna ask you. So take a breath, a deep breath, and we're gonna hit you with some questions, okay? And one of the questions you pretty much covered it is, what are your feelings toward the history and culture of elections voting in Alachua County?
Well, as I said before, elections has evolved so very much. When you look at, I was looking up there, I was walking when I came in and looking at the 2000 elections, you talk about a change. At that time, Supervisor of Elections Beverly Hill had the foresight to get rid of the punch card system here in Alachua County. We were the first ones in the state to go to an optical scan system. So when the 2000 election came, the hang chads, all of that, Alachua County didn't have to deal with any of that. And I give that credit to Supervisor of Elections Beverly Hill at that time. So there's been so many changes. We've gone from the punch card system to optical scan system, and then we have the accessible voting equipment as well, and now the ICE equipment. There's been so many changes, as I said, that's beneficial to our voters. Remember, we all used to have to do the paper poll register. You sign on the paper poll register, and now we have the electronic poll book, and that's something it's more efficient. Voters can sign on there. They get credit immediately for voting. So it locks in that you voted. You can't go anywhere else and try to check in to vote. So that's an improvement that we made. And, one of the big things we've done is ballot on demand. It used to be, just at early voting. I made the decision that we would do it at all our precincts. So now, when you go vote, your ballot is printed right there in front of you. And the good thing about it, when we had to order ballots, all the time, you don't get 100% turnout of votes, and so all the ballots that's left, we have to send them off to be shredded. So, this is a more efficient way. It's just paper. It's just paper until it's printed as a ballot. And so it saves taxpayers money, of course. And so if you order too much paper and it doesn't become a ballot, it's just paper. Just remember, it doesn't come a ballot until a voter has checked in and have gone through the necessary process. But it has saved us a tremendous amount of money. And another thing, ensuring that the voter gets the right ballot. And Elaine, you know that because you go through that process as one of our poll workers. So we have made some great improvements back in 2004. Early voting came on the scene for the state of Florida. We only had one early voting site at that time, and that was at the Supervisor of Elections office, where we have evolved so much. We went from one early voting site to three, and then when I was elected in 2016, we have added more and more early voting sites, and now we have 8 early voting sites to serve our voters across the county. So we've made that improvement as well. The paper poll register. And one of the things that we're going to be doing in 2026, commission in there, I went to the commission and say, we want to purchase Clear Ballot. It's an auditing system. It audits, it's a separate independent system from our regular voting system. It will scan every ballot, every race, every precinct. So it's a separate system so we can compare. And so a lot, and our Secretary of State is really pushing for all the counties to be able to have this. And so that's a way we have a record of every ballot that has been, voted on, and we can look if there's anything different. In most of the counties, if there's any difference, it's just just very few ballots. I mean, sometimes 2 or 3 or 4 ballots, but they can figure out why it was a difference. And most of the time, it's the markings on the ballot. So that's something we're looking forward to. A lot of our voters are excited about clear ballot auditing. And so, and one of the focus for us is election security. Election security is a biggie. We have ramped up our procedures as well, and we always have chain of custody. Everything we do, we follow the chain of custody. Also, at our office, we have physical security as well. So, no one can just come in our office. You got badge access. It's my staff only. And so we have cameras. We've amped up our cameras. So we always, are looking at ballot security, physical security, security for our election workers, security for just the staff, because even more so since 2020, it's been really a big concern of our election workers, their security. And so you see across the country, there's a lot of things that have happened to election workers. So we work very closely with law enforcement as well. One of the things that I partnered with, we partnered with FBI, Homeland Security, and meet with all of our partners, our sheriff, our chief of police, not just from Gainesville, but from the municipalities that have law enforcement, the University of Florida, Santa Fe College. So we want to make sure that our elections, our voters are safe, and secure, and our election workers as well as my staff.
I could just hand you the microphone and you could just talk. Thank you so much for all the information, and thank you for making our elections here in Alachua County safe, fair, and efficient. You talked a lot about the evolution of the voting process. How did COVID-19 pandemic change or affect the way we go about, elections?
That was a very scary year. It affected how we did things in the office, how we did things. Where it really affected the most was our election workers. We always had enough election workers, but when the pandemic hit, as it was, on the height of it, we had our election workforce. We had a lot of, senior, those have worked for years and years and years that we relied on. They knew their positions. I mean, we really did. And so when that happened, we had a lot of them that, and rightfully so, was, it was something new that people weren't really sure about. And so we had a lot of folks that decided that they couldn't work, or their children decided that they couldn't work, and it was in all ages. They just weren't sure about that, and so we had some issues there. But what ended up happening is that the governor, he, with state workers, he allowed them to work elections, and so my partnership with the sheriff's office, the tax collector's office, the property appraiser, all the constitutional officers, and even the city of Gainesville. And so Alachua County employees, they all pitched in, and those were wanting to work were allowed to work. And so we had to do a lot of additional training, and it really did come down to the wire for us. But and at that time, there were a lot of problems getting what we needed, supplies, whether it was hand sanitizers, and the governor was helping with that, and different organizations. So we were able to get what we needed. We had to do a lot of communication in the community because voters were afraid to come. And let me tell you, vote by mail soared like crazy here in Alachua County. I think we had 75,000 requests to vote by mail, and we're normally somewhere like 30,000. 75,000 vote by mail. And so that was the year that vote by mail was the highest method of voting. And we understand that. But even our polling places, making sure, they were clean, sanitized, even the instruments to sign on the electronic poll book. We had put things in place, processes in place. We had face masks, we had shields. We wanted to have everything that voters that they could come in and feel comfortable and feel safe, as well as our election workers, because we didn't want anything to happen to those who were coming to provide a service to our voters. So there were some counties in Florida, they absolutely did not have enough election workers. But one thing about it, even though it was a pandemic, the state never called off the election. Elections has to go on. These are, they don't stop, election goes on. And so we made it at the end of the night. We kept saying we made it. Believe me, it was a very, very hard time, a lot of hours, a lot of work put into communicating to our voters, and just making sure people know what we were doing and what lengths we were going to make sure that they were safe. And so, and of course, the 6-foot distance and the lines as well. So yes, we did have everything we needed, and we made sure that everyone knew what was available there.
Thank you. Voter apathy. I mean, unfortunately, there's a segment of our population who don't exercise their right to vote, who stay home from the polls. Do you have any stories from your 2 terms or from your time in the office prior to 2017 that demonstrate the importance of voting in elections?
How much time do you have? Well, when I think back, when I first came to the elections office in '93, I was hired by Supervisor of Elections Beverly Hill as the first outreach. She created this position for me. And, one of the things that I really wanted to focus on is young people. Really starting out, because I went into the schools and I would speak to the students, and they just, they didn't care. They would say things like, hey, we'll let those people vote, whoever wants to vote, we'll let them vote. They're going to be the ones to decide it anyway. So I had my work cut out for me, and I had to let them know that they have a voice. Their vote counts just the same as my vote. And as I went into the high schools and start really working with all schools in Alachua County, all public schools, private schools, working with the students and letting them know the power of their vote, and which is very, very important. And so I started seeing some changes over time, and just working with them and taking the voting equipment to the schools, to show them this is how you vote. what your rights and what your responsibility is. And even today, you have, voters, they don't know what the rights and responsibilities are. And so expressing to them. And so I know that when in the 2008 election here in Alaska, look at the turnout, the highest number turnout vote age wise, it was the age between 18 and 25 here in Alachua County. So I look at it as like all that hard work it continues to pay off. If you look at even now in the 2024 election, the turnout of our younger generation, it has increased so much. So that has really excited me more to see more young people really exercising their right to vote and know the importance of it. For me, one of the greatest events for me that I remember being out there and being among people. I think the greatest position at the office is director of outreach. You get to meet people where they are. And I have someone sitting out in the audience. I know people watching, they don't see it, but my director of outreach and communication is here. And you have to love what you do for this job, because people you'll get turned off. They'll say, "Don't talk to me about this. I don't care about this." But you have to keep going. It's very important. But I met a 90-year-old man. I was out in the community, and he came up to me and he said, "Miss Barton, can I talk to you?" I said, "Sure." And and I felt like it was something he wanted to say to me privately. So I said, "Come on, let's go over in this corner." And he said to me, he said, "I'm ashamed." He said, "I've never voted in my life, and I'm really ashamed of it." And I thought, here's an opportunity. He said, I just never took the time to register to vote. I'm eligible to vote, but I just never took the time to do that. And I said, "I tell you what, we're going to get you registered to vote." I didn't make him feel ashamed. I didn't, make him feel bad about it. I said, "Today is the day that you start. We're going to get you registered to vote." We were coming up on the 2008 election and got him registered. And he came back to me and he said, with tears in his eyes, that he voted for the very first time. If I don't do anything else right in this job, that is the one thing I will always remember, that how it made him feel. He understood the power of his vote. There are so many things, you know, um, I could pull back on, but that is the most, and I think it's the priority of my office to educate, to make sure that voters are prepared. We send out preparedness guides. We make sure we know that voters know that they have an option here in Florida. They can vote by mail. They can vote in person at an early voting site or at a polling place. Sometimes people just don't want to see anybody, and that's okay. But please don't forget, you still have your right to vote. And I know there's so many changes that, the legislature are looking at making down the road on, whether it's vote by mail changes. But nevertheless, you will always have your right to vote if you just continue to just, you know, do what you're supposed to do and make sure that you don't do anything that keeps you from voting. And so I think it's very important that outreach in my office continue. We we reach out to the municipalities. We go to anywhere there's one or two people. We're not in the numbers. If someone says we're having this event, if we can impact anyone, whether it's providing educational materials to them, making them aware of when election dates and deadlines are, letting them know their rights and responsibilities. We partner with them. We partner with the University of Florida. We partner with Santa Fe College. We partner with a lot of the adult living facilities like Okamic, the Village. There's so many organizations we partner with. They ask us to come, we'll come. We have I have a staff of not just a director of outreach, but we have volunteers that are paid. We train them. They go out and assist and register. We also train third-party voter registration organizations who want to do their own registration and collect voter registration. So we train them in what the law is and their responsibility with that, because they're responsible. They're taking voter registration forms and collecting them with private information. So we do train them and let them know what the law is. So there's a lot. I'm so excited. I think a lot of people don't know this, but because of our work with the University of Florida, and I might add, what year was that? I think that was 2018. Yeah, 2018. We couldn't have an early voting site on college campus. And I know the University of Florida students really rallied to make that happen. But a judge overturned that. And soon as the judge said that we could in the state of Florida, we were the first ones in the state of Florida. That night, I wrote a letter to the president of the University of Florida to partner with us so that we could have an early voting site at the Rights Union. And we were the first one in the state of Florida to say, yes, we were going to have an early voting site. There were a lot of other counties that said that they didn't want to do it. But we were so excited about it because I really felt like the students really worked hard to try to make that happen. And so in the state of Florida, when we had our first early voting site at the Rights Union, we had the highest turnout in a student early voting site in the state of Florida. I think we had about 8,000 voters that voted at that early voting site. And so we were recognized nationally by the Election Center with our work with the University of Florida. So that was the first time in the history of Alachua County that we received a national recognition and I was able to go and present what we did and how we made it work. And it took a lot to put that together to have an early voting site. We worked parking, we work with administration, so we did a lot. So we really go out and I would encourage any group or organization. We've had fraternities, sororities. We work with the NAACP. There's many organizations we work with, illegal women voters. But if you want us to come, whether it's voter registration, you want us to speak, we always welcome to do that. We do supervised voting. At our if it's requested by, we do Okamic, we've done supervised voting at the Village. We really try to reach out and connect with, in every area of our community. I'm sorry.
No. They're here for you to. This is a conversation with the Supervisor of Elections. So thank you so much. And once again, thank you so much for making sure that we have safe, secure, fair, efficient elections here in Alachua County. And thank you for all the outreach that you do here in the county. I want to pause right here for briefly, and we're going to make sure if we have any questions from the audience. So we would like for you to come to this microphone over here. And please state your name.
My name's Ellen, and thank you so much. This has really been fascinating. Thank you for taking the time to do this. I have two questions. One, if you could wave a magic wand, if you weren't limited by current state, federal regulations, money, what would you do to make it super easy for people to vote? Just super easy. That's my first question. That's a big one. And then the second one is with, I know you have to be apolitical with all the crazy stuff going on now. Do you predict these upcoming midterm elections, you're going to have a lot more people voting than typically vote during the midterms?
Okay, I'll take your second one first. Well, you know what drives people mostly is who's running most of the time. Um, Midterm elections turnout is not really as high as a presidential election year. So normally it's about 30, about 30%. But it's really going to depend on, who's running and the interest of the voters. And so we'll have to see that. And another thing is, I really do think that Florida has made it easy for voters in terms of picking how you wish to vote. Now, what's going to happen in this legislative session and how they want to change these things, I'm not sure. One of the problems we do have once the legislature makes some changes, like we've had some changes to vote by mail, and we educate the public, we get them all educated, and then the next session, they make another change. And so, we have the challenge of trying to make sure voters know of its change, just like when they change vote by mail request. You used to, through 2 general election cycles. Now, after each election cycle at the end of that year, you have to request vote by mail again. And that was really challenging for us because we had folks who didn't know of the law change. So we had to do a lot of different things. We had emails, we had phone numbers, we called. We had to do a whole lot of things to notify people that that had changed because they'd be sitting there probably waiting on a vote by mail ballot to come that would never come. So we had to do a lot of work. Also, one of the changes was you had to request a vote by mail, there had to be a PIN in your record. PIN is personal identifying, your social security number, your driver's license. Well, you had people that had registered to vote years and years and years ago when that wasn't required. So now when someone calls and say, I would like to request a vote by mail, they'd have to verify one of their pins in the record. And if there's no pins, then that's a problem. And so we had to give them the information they needed to make that happen. But there's so many changes, and so we never know in elections from day to day. But I know a lot of I think it's, as I said, I always tell people Florida's made it easy in terms of there's 3 methods of voting. Um, um, what I could do, well, there's a lot of things. Um, you know, um, there's so many things. I wish it could be. Um, I wouldn't want to say that, but there's a lot of things that could, of course, make it easier. But I just need to see. I don't know what's expected after this legislative session, so it could make it even harder for voters. So I'm sorry I couldn't. The first question was a little hard for me, but I know that um, some folks like to extend early voting all the way through election day. That's one of the things that I've heard, can you just extend it all the way to through election day? And that could be challenging in terms of preparing for us, but I'm always of the mindset, if we can do it legally and it makes things easier for the voters, I'm always for that. As long as there are things in place to make sure everything is secure, there's chain of custody of everything we do. That's one of the main things for us. But I hear that a lot of times from some supervisors. They wish that, early voting has to end at a certain, the last Sunday before Election Day. They wish early voting could stay and open and go all the way through Election Day. And that is not the case right now in the election code.
So I would guess it's fair to say one of the questions that I have, what are the key challenges you see moving forward in elections? And I would think that keeping up with what the legislators are doing from session to session and how it affects what you do is one of the challenges. Are there any others?
Another challenge is one of the things. There's been several changes in law. One of the things is we're seeing a lot across, one of the concerns from a lot of different groups is voters' ballots being challenged. And that's been whether it's a vote by mail ballots being challenged in terms of ballot review in law now. There are candidates it can come and view. In law, there are certain people that can come and view vote by mail ballots that we have received, not open, but we have received, and they can come and compare signature, and if against the voter registration. So what they do is they come. Whether they're a political party, a political committee, or a candidate, they can come and make appointment with my office. We have certain set times during election time for ballot review, and we are required to go through a signature verification course. Whether it's the canvassing board, there will be viewing signatures. In my office, all my staff goes through this training. I have Michael Bruckman, who oversees vote by mail, oversees that process. And so they come in at a set time, they view the signatures on the screen. And so by us going through that training, we know, and I mean, it's an extensive training, we know what to look for. Everyone is not going to sign their name the same way every time. Most people don't. I do. You can go back and look at my signature 20 years ago. It's going to be the same today. But everybody's not like that. But they train us on, the flow. There's so many things you've trained on. And so we have been trained by professionals and we have to go through that training, but someone could come in and say, I want to challenge that. That doesn't look like the same signature. And so we're seeing that more and more. And when someone challenges, it has to be presented to the canvassing board for a decision. And most of the time, because the canvassing board has gone through that training, we can say, hey, yeah, that looks the same. We're looking for similarities in signatures. A lot of people want to look at an exact carbon copy. And, and like I said, everyone doesn't sign the same every way, but there's so many similarities, whether it's in the first letter, whether it's how it's slant. So we're seeing people challenge that a lot, and that has been a not really big here in Alachua County, but more and more as groups start really getting involved in elections, and more and more people are seeing challenges that come across. But we don't get a whole lot, but we have had some. So that's a concern of ours as well. Another big concern for me, as I always say, is the security of our election workers. I know that we've had some issues with that. And so where we've had to call in law enforcement. And so not a whole lot. We've had across the country, you all have seen where they've opened up envelopes and there's, the white powder. That's been a concern. We've seen where ballot boxes, someone tried to set the ballot boxes on fire. We've seen where election workers have been followed home. So those things are a great concern. I know for myself, I have changed my route home. I felt like someone has followed me home. And so those are always concerns. We, at one precinct, we had someone come in and at the end of closing, storm in the camera, taking pictures of what was going on, being very disruptive. And as they were trying to shut down the polling place, was taking a picture of them all the way to their cars, following them, and so I wasn't made aware of it until I received, after the fact. But we always try to, when we're training our election workers, let us know immediately. If you feel threatened in any way, call 911 first, then call us. But we're seeing that more and more across the country, and even across some of the elections office in the state as well. But we haven't, where it has risen, where someone has really physically, we did have someone that got pushed by a voter, and we had to call law enforcement in. But that's a big concern in elections, because you have people that have spent their time, they come to training, they give up their time, they want to be a part of the process and help our voters. They want to see voters leave the polling place having a good voting experience. And so to be attacked or be harassed in some way, that's a big concern of mine.
Well, thank you. Do we have any more questions from the audience?
Good evening. My name is Susan. A number of years ago, I was looking into trying to expand vote by mail for all elections. And it was mainly to try to do it for city elections because we knew how much it cost the city of Gainesville to hold their city elections. At the time, it was every year we were having these elections, and it was anywhere from $100,000 to $200,000 every year of taxpayer money to hold city elections. So I was looking into, let's just do it all by vote by mail. And turns out there is a state statute that prohibits vote by mail elections if there are candidates on there. If you're doing like an annexation, you can do vote by mail for the entire thing. The good part of that is that saves a lot of taxpayer money, because then the supervisor's office doesn't have to set up voting precincts and so on and so forth. And in looking into that, I actually contacted clerks and supervisors of elections out in Washington State, Oregon at the time, because they've been doing all of their elections by vote by mail for years. And when I asked them how much money they saved, it was hundreds of millions of dollars was saved. They had incredibly high turnout every single election. Like we were having, 10%, maybe 15% for city. They were having, 40, 50, 60% turnout. And then, of course, in the other larger national elections, their turnout was in the 80% all the time. And so my question is this. It seems to me that because it would be in the public interest to save statewide hundreds of millions of dollars, if not add a few more zeros to that, is changing that state statute something that maybe the statewide Supervisor of Elections organization, which, perhaps you can talk a little bit about the Florida Supervisor of Elections. Did I get the name of that right? Is this something that perhaps they can work with the state legislature to say it increases voter turnout, it saves tons and tons of money. We don't have these problems at voting sites like you've been describing. So is this something that could be taken up?
Well, I don't think, we have a lobbyist, but I don't think this is, since I've been in the elections office and I've gone to those conferences since '93, but it has ever come up. It really hasn't. And of course it would, it take a lot of work to put it on, but it really would, because you wouldn't have to, of course, first you wouldn't have to pay the election workers. You wouldn't have to pay for the polling places. You would just, the ballots, the mailing out the ballots. It would take a bigger staff for me to do it. And Mike, my vote by mail coordinator is here. Is there something else you think you'd like to add to that? Because that's his.
Wave a magic wand and ensure that the right to vote includes the right to vote by mail, constitutionally in Florida and without that, the only thing that you have protecting your right to vote, you are protected to stand online until your feet hurt, and then cast them out. That is what you're currently protected federally allowed to do. But beyond that, there is no on election day, right? Election day. That's where your federal constitutional right is protected. Outside of that, they can almost do whatever they want. And until that part changes, I think what you're suggesting is great, but wishful thinking.
Yeah, I don't know how many supervisors of elections would be on board with that. I couldn't really speak to that, but it definitely would save a lot of money, and I'm sure turnout. And our turnout this 2024, we had a very high turnout. It was 86%, but I'm sure that possibly could move it up even higher. But the thing with vote by mail, here in Alachua County, we pay for return postage as well. So, if someone didn't, use that money rolls, we still have that money for future elections in our postage account. So, yeah, that would definitely for the security of our election workers. But I think, our election workers, they love what they do. They really do. They really feel a part of the process. And and there are folks who have traditionally, my family has all gone together on election day. We've all went and voted together. That's something we do. And some people, they don't like early voting. They want to go on election day.
That's me.
But as times have changed, vote by mail has really been beneficial for a lot of folks, because it used to be only certain reasons you could get a vote by mail ballot. Florida is a no excuse state now. So, and I know I've heard some rumblings or maybe kind of changing that. We'll see. There's some folks would like for it to go back to you can only get it, for certain reasons.
Do we have any more questions from the audience? Are we able to get questions from those watching via Zoom? Okay. Yes, of course. And I have a question, and you can answer. I'll ask this question before you depart.
Okay. So one of the things we've had to deal with a lot since the 2020 election is a lot of misinformation going out in the public, different groups and organizations, whether and things have gotten so political. And I must say this first and foremost, my office, we don't do anything political. We're nonpartisan. When I ran for Supervisor of Elections, I said I want to be a Supervisor of Elections for all, not just Democrats, Republicans, Green Party, for all. And so we don't get involved in party politics in my office. We follow the election code and the rules. And so, but there is so much misinformation, and I think it's it has eroded the public's trust in our election officials. It's to the point where, they just don't entrust anything we say. We are the trusted source. We are the trusted source for elections information and voting. And so I always say, if you hear something and it doesn't sound right, don't just go on that person's word. Research it out or call our office. We spend more time trying to correct something that has gone out that is wrong, whether it is via the media or whether it is from certain groups or whether it's from Facebook. In my office, we don't run down things from Facebook, but when it's something that really is just, really wrong and really can be misleading to people, there's times you have to address things. So I think in our country, things have really gotten bad in terms of misinformation. And the best way that I like to say to folks is seek that information, make sure, test it to see if it's really true or not. You can call us, we welcome that. We want people to know the process of elections from beginning to end. We're not a secret group over here doing anything. There's integrity in the process. And so when we have canvassing board meetings where ballots are coming in to be processed and counted, we invite the public to come. And for years, I would say, please come to our canvassing board meetings, learn more about elections. We'd have one person show up for years. And since, the 2020 election, we seem to have more people coming. And I think it's great. I think it's great. And so they can see what's going on. They can watch what the canvassing board is doing. They can see ballots being ran through the high-speed scanner. If they have questions, they can ask us questions. And so I'd rather someone come see what's going on. If you want to visit the office, the elections office is your office. Come see us. Call us up. Say, I'd like to come and learn more about the process. I'd like to see how I can help in this area. We're always recruiting election workers. That is the best way to find out about elections, because you have to be trained in positions. And so you have to follow the rules and the statutes that we train you. And so you want to know about elections, get involved. You can get involved volunteering in our office through our outreach program. You can be an election worker. And so, but we want to make sure that we combat misinformation out there. And it's incumbent upon the voters. Voters have responsibility too. You're voting. There are things that we're required to do to make sure you have a ballot. Make sure when elections deadlines and dates are, and we do all we're supposed to do. But you should have some responsibility in searching out some things as well. And so I think it's really important that when you hear something, it doesn't sound right, it sounds one-sided, and you have questions about it, give us a call, because we are the trusted source of information.
So will you come out to community if a citizen or a group wanted to host you to come out and just share information about what the Supervisor of Elections office does? Would you do something like that?
We do it all the time.
Okay. My question, you mentioned, I think 1994, I think.
When I started?
So some people, they may just know you from running for Supervisor of Elections and not know your history within that office. So share with us a little bit about your journey in the office.
In the office, okay. All right. Well, I came to the elections office. I was hired once again by Beverly Hills Supervisor of Elections, and she was elected in '92, and so she had a position. She was going to be hiring assistant supervisor of elections. Of course, I applied for the position. I didn't get the position, but she later called me and she said, "Hey, I'm really thinking about this position as an outreach person, and I really think you'd be really good at that." And previous to this, I worked for the Department of Children and Family. I worked in adoptions. I recruited families. I worked with churches. I worked in the community, recruiting families to adopt Black children who were caught up in the foster care system far too long. And so I had that connection in the community. So she knew I had that connection and was always out doing presentations in the community, educating people about the need for adopted families. And so she hired me, and previously in the elections office they did not have one dedicated position just for that. So I built that program up, partnering with churches, partnering with organizations, and and chamber, and just the schools, going out to the schools educating. So when I first came on, I was outreach coordinator. And so as more and more responsibilities and the changes in elections evolved, the position changed to outreach director. And so I've been there. February 15th of this month, I'll have 32 years at the Supervisor of Elections office. But I love what I do. I love what I did then, and it was really hard for me to break away from outreach as when I was elected. I hired I hired someone to do that job, and it was like pulling teeth. I was I was like, okay, Kim, you gotta let this go. Let this go now. But when it's in you, you want to see people educated. You want to see people informed. You want people to exercise their right to vote. And when it's in you, it's hard to let go. And so I've had some wonderful people work in the elections office. Aaron Klein is now is the director of communications and outreach. He's done a marvelous job. And so I think that is the backbone of my office. It's very important, key position in my office, because if you don't communicate, you will not have informed voters, and they won't know what to do, and we can't have that in Alachua County. But that's where I started, and so when Supervisor of Elections Pam Carpenter decided that she was going to retire, with much prayer, I decided that hey, I think I'm going to run for Supervisor of Elections. And I had a lot of people really encourage me to do so. And so I won. And so, and having be the first African American Supervisor of Elections in the county seat. But once again, it was an honor, and I'm here to serve everyone. And so I always say that if there's anything that anyone has that want to share with us, or some advice, or something you think that can make things better, and I always tell people I want to hear about it. If it's something that we can do that's within the law, I always like to say that first. People have some great ideas, but we can't do it. I mean, we just can't do it. And so, but I ran for reelection in 2020. And we did some great things. My first term, we made some changes. And so when I ran in 2020, lo and behold, I had no opposition. And so thankfully, I appreciate the voters of Alachua County. I appreciate those who thought that I did a great job. And so I ran again. In 2024, I had an opponent, and the voters of Alachua County saw fit to put me back in office. And so I will continue to serve, always looking to improve, always looking to build upon. And so we're here, and that's what we're here to do. We want to be open. I have an open door in my office. I tell people all the time, I have an open door. And so we're here to serve you. When you come in, you will have a welcoming atmosphere, welcoming spirit. Come in. If you have questions, that's what we're there for, to answer your questions.
Well, congratulations. And thank you so much for taking up this huge responsibility of making sure that we have fair, safe, efficient elections in Alachua County. We had a gentleman just walked in. Do you have any questions for the Supervisor of Elections? Okay, he's a reporter. Do we have any questions from the audience? I see the ladies from League of Women Voters are back there. I know you have questions. Workers? Okay. Do we have any questions from our virtual friends yet? Okay. Well, uh,
I'm still Ellen. My best friend is a poll worker, and she comes from a very technical background, very smart, and she said going through the training was really hard. I mean, there's a lot to learn when you talk about chain of custody and all the equipment and just step-by-step procedures. She was very impressed. So she kind of gave me a little bit of the Reader's Digest version of some of the things that, for chain of custody and prevent interference with the machines and things like that. But I was thinking, boy, if there's some way with like a YouTube video or something where you could do like kind of an educational short video, because there's so much that goes into it. I think skeptics might, at least some of them, with that being explained, might have more confidence in the election. So again, I'm just asking you, what do you think, like a YouTube video or something, what kind of outreach to hit the high points of what you do to protect the integrity of the elections for people who question that?
And I think we do have a video on our website. Yes, we do. We do have a video on our website, and you were mentioning your friend is a poll worker, and a lot goes into it, and it does. They are required to go through training. We also have once they go through face-to-face training, we have an online training where they can look at videos as well. So we try to make sure they're well prepared. We don't want to put any election worker out there that's not prepared to receive our voters and follow what is required of them in their position. But we do have that on our website.
Hi, Ms. Barton. Such a pleasure to see you here today.
Thank you.
My question has to do with youth. Are you seeing, or have you seen an increase in the young voters between the ages of 18 and 25? I know that's been a challenge getting that group.
We definitely have seen a big increase, even with the 2024 election. I think always the 66 and up is the highest, but the second highest is the 18 to 25.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Yes.
Carol Richardson.
Thank you, Ms. Richardson. Yeah, we have really seen a big increase of our younger 18 to 25 turnout, and I think it's going to go up even more.
No, you're fine. You can talk you're here because we want to hear you. So you can talk as much as you like. One of the questions we had, what advice would you give citizens in the community to strengthen elections in Alachua County?
Okay, let's see. I think that, I think it's important. Election belongs to the people, first of all. So I think to strengthen that is to really educate yourself. I think that's very important. In person to ask question. Ask your neighbor, who registered to vote. That will strengthen the elections, getting others registered to vote, getting others prepared. A lot of times, as I said, we send information to households, and people don't read it. It's it's very important, and I think that will strengthen you. You educate yourself on the information, on the process. Also, be a source of accurate information. Not be putting out erroneous information or misguided information. So be one that puts out accurate information as well. Of course, strengthen an election worker. That would definitely be something I think that will strengthen us in elections as well. But just be the person to ask questions, seek out information of the process. If you're not sure, that will definitely. But I think we all play a role in this. My office plays a role in that, and as voters, as I said, you have rights and responsibilities as well. And so go to our website. In Florida law, it does have rights and responsibilities. We have to post those even at the polling places. And those are things that we have to do as election officials, and the rights and responsibilities as voters as well.
One of the fascinating things that I discovered this evening was the forensic handwriting expert course you have to take to verify signatures. I mean, how long does the process? How long does that take if someone came in? I mean, to challenge a ballot, and how many? Typically, how many ballots would that be? Would it be like hundreds or thousands, or like one or two?
Well, here in Alachua County, we've had, I think, in the past 3 elections, possibly. We've had some people come in and view ballots at ballot viewing. We haven't had more than four to five challenges in an election. One election we may have had two. The most we've had is 5. And you just challenge it. You fill out a challenge form and you submit it to our office. And so we know that we have to present that challenge to the canvassing board. I notify the voter that their signature has been challenged. So they have a right to know that their signature has been challenged. And so I think all those that have been challenged, if I'm Mike, I think they all have, the canvassing board has accepted. I think maybe, and then they do have the right, even if it's challenged, they have a right to cure that. They have a right to cure that signature.
Yes, as I remember, I believe there was
State your name, please.
sure, Michael Bruckman, vote by mail coordinator. As I remember, when this first was passed, I think the first round of objections came during a August primary, and I believe uh, there were more than a few that were submitted. The canvassing board agreed with 2, I believe. One was cured and one got knocked out. Since then, I believe for whatever they've submitted, even if the canvassing board did agree, I believe all of them from that point on were subsequently cured.
Yeah.
Luckily. Meaning that if we alerted them to the fact that there was an objection to their signature, and then they could submit a cure form with a copy of their picture ID, and that allows us to count the ballot.
Okay. But there are some counties have experienced significant amount of challenges. Yes. Yes.
Thank you. Do we have any more questions from the audience? Anyone online? Well, I would like to just thank you so much for joining us here this evening. It's been a wonderful, wonderful conversation. And thank you for coming out to the Matheson History Museum of Alachua County to share um, with our audience and with the citizens of Alachua County some information about the Supervisor of Elections office. One last question for me. If someone wanted to be a poll worker, how would they go about doing that? And how long of a process is it?
So they can apply to be a poll worker online. They can go to votealachua.gov. Um, and so, as you know, we're going to be preparing for the 2026 election. That's our next countywide election. And so once they get signed up, we'll send them information. Of course, they have to be e-verified. There's paperwork that has to be filled out. There's various positions that we have. And so they have to kind of know about the positions. We can provide that information to them, and they can figure out what they're best suited for. Some people say anything electronic, stay away from it because we have the electronic poll book that you check voters in. We have that position. We have ballot scanner position. We have in assistant clerks and clerks positions, there's someone that has kind of already worked before. We have support workers. We have workers that guard the secure ballot intake station, which formerly known as the drop box. They always that drop box. So there's positions that we have checking in voters as well, that position. So once they, we'll invite them to training. Once they've gone through the I-9, is it I-9, the verify process, e-verify process, and we'll schedule our classes and invite them to come to classes. And so we have that opportunity to see how they perform. And some people will say, hey, this is not for me. I thought it was. I'd rather them recognize it. It's good when you can recognize maybe this is not for me. Maybe I'll volunteer and do outreach and register people to vote for the office. That's something else as well. But we have a great pool of election workers, and yes, we would like to um, more younger, because you want voters to see people just like them when they come to the polling place. So we want to recruit as well more younger voters as well. And so we're always looking for voters of all ages, but our pool as far as the younger voters between the ages of 18 to 25 is small. So but yes, please call us. We can provide information to you. If you want to talk to someone, we can talk to you about the different positions, or you can go on votealachua.gov and apply and get information.
One more question. I just thought about this, and we talked about it briefly before we had the formal discussion, and it's about how elections are conducted in the other municipalities outside of Gainesville. So I know, and I know there are some who think that, say, for instance, the city of Alachua, they conduct their own elections, but there are some citizens who think that's unique to the city of Alachua, but it's not. So explain that to us.
So in Alachua County, there's 9 municipalities. We provide support. The only municipality that we actually run their election is the city of Gainesville. Uh, over over 90,000 voters. I mean, that's the county seat. So we run their elections. The municipalities outside of Gainesville, we provide support to them for their elections. They run their own elections. For years, we've tried to get them to have one municipal election day, which would be great, instead of having all these different municipal elections, Berry have their election, Alachua have their elections, Hawthorne have their elections, Waldo, and so every year we have all these municipal, smaller municipalities have their own elections. But what we do is we provide support. Of course, we allow them to use our equipment. And so we do the logic and accuracy testing of the voting equipment. We train poll workers for them. We provide support, vote by mail. We help them with that. And my staff is there all day until their election has ended. We come in at 5 in the morning and we're there until their election's over to make sure everything is fine. And so we provide that support to them. A lot of municipalities, they want to run their own election. They do their own qualifying for their candidates. We don't do the candidate qualifying for the city of Gainesville. They do that, but we do run their election. So we're always there to provide support to all the municipalities in any way we can. But as I said, we train their poll workers. We provide support, vote by mail. And so we go when they have their logic and accuracy testing. If there's any questions about the process, if there's candidates there, we can answer those questions for them in terms of the equipment or anything like that. But their poll workers get the same. These are the same poll workers that work the countywide elections for us. So they're from Alachua, they're from Newberry, they're from Waldo, Mickinoke, but we are there to provide support, and they do use our equipment.
Well, thank you so much. With that, that will conclude our wonderful discussion with the Supervisor of Elections for Alachua County, and Madam Supervisor Kim Barton. So thank you so much for joining us. Sarah, would you like any closing remarks?
February 22nd.
Thank you so much. You have a good evening. Thank you.